Tonight on To The Point, trans athlete debate. New changes to California high school sports rules as national controversy draws fresh attention.
Dozens of California solar customers are here at the Capitol protesting a bill they say will ultimately drive up the cost of utilities and erode their home values. Hear their arguments and how the lawmaker behind this bill is responding.
Plus new guidance for COVID vaccines, why health officials say some groups may no longer need the shot, and as health policy changes in Washington, former Health Secretary Javier Becerra weighs what it means for the nation.
Thanks for joining us on To The Point. I'm Alex Bell. Tonight, the California Interscholastic Federation is changing competition rules to allow more girls at state track and field championships amid controversy over the participation of a transgender student athlete. And it comes after President Donald Trump threatened federal funding to California in a social media post just this morning. ABC 10's Becca Habecker joins us in studio to break everything down.
Yeah, Alex, the California Interscholastic Federation, CIF, governs high school sports in California. As we've reported, President Trump signed an executive order in February threatening federal funding to states that allow transgender girls and women to compete on high school girls and college women's sports teams, claiming transgender athletes have an unfair biological advantage.
All this time, the CIF has stuck to California law, which since 2014 allows high school students to participate on athletic teams consistent with his or her gender identity, irrespective of the gender listed on the pupil's records. As a result, the U.S. Department of Education launched an investigation earlier this year into the CIF. And just this Tuesday morning, President Trump posted on Truth Social about a transgender high school girl in Southern California who will be competing in this weekend's state track and field championship. He said, in part, as a female, this transitioned person is practically unbeatable. This is not fair and totally demeaning to women and girls. Please be hereby advised that large-scale federal funding will be held back, maybe permanently, if the executive order on this subject matter is not adhered to. Also Tuesday morning, the CIF announced it's implementing a pilot entry process for the 2025 CIF State Track and Field Championships, saying in part, any biological female student athlete or cisgender female who would have earned the next qualifying mark in sections was extended an opportunity to participate in the state championships. The CIF said on X, and the governor's office told ABC 10, the CIF made this decision before Trump's post on Truth Social. In a statement to ABC 10, the governor's office said CIF's proposed pilot is a reasonable, respectful way to navigate a complex issue without compromising competitive fairness, a model worth pursuing. The governor is encouraged by this thoughtful approach. Anti-transgender advocates say the CIF's policy doesn't go far enough. Former student athlete Riley Gaines saying on X, boys would still be competing against girls. We also heard from Equality California, which advocates for LGBTQ plus causes.
We do want to make sure, and we will make sure to follow that CIF ensures the full compliance with Californians' non-discrimination laws that they have been following, but we want to make sure that that's still in place, that it protects the privacy and dignity of the transgender students that are participating.
I reached out to the CIF to ask if this pilot entry process will be applied to other future sports championships. I also asked whether it's being used this weekend for all track and field events or just the events in which a transgender athlete is also competing. I did not hear back by deadline. Alex?
All right, Becca, thank you so much. The Trump administration is escalating its clash with Harvard, asking federal agencies to cancel contracts with the university worth around $100 million. A senior official says a letter from the General Services Administration urges agencies to review deals with Harvard and seek other vendors. This follows the loss of $2.6 billion in federal research grants after Harvard sued the administration in April over efforts to reshape its leadership and admissions policies. President Donald Trump has repeatedly criticized Harvard, accusing it of promoting liberal ideologies and anti-Semitism. The administration is also threatening the university's tax-exempt status. Dozens of rooftop solar owners and those advocating for solar panels gathered at the Capitol today to protest Assembly Bill 942. They argue if passed, it would bring down the value of their homes and also drive up the cost of their utilities. ABC 10's Jean Nguyen shares their concerns and how the lawmaker behind the bill is responding tonight.
Solar contract.
As California homeowners, these people care about the environment. For many of them, it was the reason to buy solar panels for their home.
To help the planet, I thought it was doing a positive thing, and I still do that.
San Jose resident Rob Hawley has owned his solar panels since 2002, and in 2017, he signed a contract with PG&E to replace his system. Hawley's agreement with PG&E goes through the net energy metering program, allowing him to get credits.
My electric bills are pretty nominal, but remember, as an NEM2 user, I always have to pay a minimum per month.
But that may be changing if Assembly Bill 942 becomes a law. Introduced by Democrat Assemblymember Lisa Calderon, the bill would require new owners of rooftop solar to agree to a new program called the Net Billing Tariff and to get rid of the California climate credit through the cap and trade program.
AB 942, no!
Advocates for solar say this defeats the purpose on why people went solar in the first place.
When you have solar on your home and you need to sell your home, the solar adds value to your home. And a new buyer gets value from that, and it'll increase the sale price. With this bill, that no longer happens. So you need to eat the cost if you sell your home, if you haven't gotten the full 20 years of value from those solar panels. And it can add up to tens of thousands of dollars.
Assemblymember Calderon says the subsidies through the net energy metering program have created a shortfall, and over time, non-solar customers have had to cover that cost. Now she says her bill will save Californians billions of dollars in energy bills. Assemblymember Calderon would not do an interview with ABC 10, but during last month's Assembly Utilities and Energy Committee, she had this to say.
I don't want to take anything away from people that have solar, but we've got to find a way to make this more equitable and fair, because right now the current system, in my opinion, is not fair.
Calderon provided a statement saying in part she acknowledges the strong feelings on both sides, but believes it will provide benefits to a majority of Californians. Ultimately, homeowners like Hawley say it's unfair to punish those who chose to invest in rooftop solar panels.
The bottom line is we as solar users are contributing to the system. We are making the system smaller. We do pay bills.
At the Capitol, Jeannie Nguyen, ABC 10.
AB 942 will be heard on the Assembly floor sometime next week. Sacramento City Council is considering cutting the Sacramento Police Marine Unit to help with budget constraints. The city is facing a $44 million budget deficit and says eliminating 2 full-time positions could save about $261,000 a year. Police say the Marine Unit is vital during peak boating season to ensure safety and also prevent crime. If cut, officers would be reassigned within the department. Final budget decisions are expected June 10th. It's the end of an era for a piece of Sacramento's firefighting history. The Sacramento Regional Fire Museum and Learning Center is closing due to rising costs. The museum opened 5 years ago to honor and showcase the region's firefighting legacy. The society says it's actively searching for a new, more affordable site with hopes to reopen the museum in the future. Next on To the Point, why California set a large fire along I-80 today and how it could help prevent something much worse.
And we're going to need those prescribed burns because we are warming up. Weather impact alert for Friday and Saturday as we're looking at near record heat.
Plus, there's a new COVID variant in California, what it means as vaccine guidance changes. Welcome back. If you saw smoke rising along I-80 in Solano County today, it was a prescribed burn. CAL FIRE crews intentionally ignited about 80 acres between Fairfield and Vacaville using low-intensity flames to safely clear dry grass and brush ahead of wildfire season. It's part of a proactive strategy, and the state plans to expand prescribed burns to 400,000 acres a year by 2025. In Vacaville, operations have now wrapped up. Crews burned about 3/4 of a 110-acre site over 2 days. Let's get over to meteorologist Brendan Minchev tracking our weather impact alert for later this week, right, Brendan?
Yeah, that's right. It is really going to heat up there, heat up here by the time we get to Friday and Saturday. And in fact, it's going to feel more like July than it is late May. We made it to 90 today in Sacramento, 92 in Stockton, 88 in Modesto, 88 in Marysville, 87 in Oroville, 81 Placerville, 77 in Truckee, 74 South Lake Tahoe, 89 in Vacaville. Similar temperatures in Fairfield. The data is bad out there. It was warmer than 65 in Fairfield this afternoon. Currently 85 in Vacaville, 87 in Sacramento, 84 in Elk Grove, 89 Stockton, 89 Manteca, 88 in Modesto, 86 in Tracy, 87 Colusa, 70s and 80s right now in the foothills and 70s in the high country. Through the next few hours, the low 80s at the top of the hour, 70 degrees by 9 o'clock, 64 degrees at 11 tonight. A very mild start to tomorrow. 54 Sacramento, 54 in Stockton, 54 Manteca, 56 Tracy, 57 in Modesto, 55 Colusa, 50s and 60s in the foothills, and 30s up in the high country. Tomorrow, a little milder than where we were today as well. So just a brief dip in temperatures. I know that we're in this warming trend. Tomorrow's a pause, but it is going to get much warmer than this. 87 Wednesday afternoon in Sacramento, 87 in Stockton, 84 Manteca, about 89 in Modesto, 91 Marysville, 95 in Colusa. Again, it's just a slight dip in the overall warming pattern that we have through Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, which will be the peak of this heat. We've got a heat advisory out Friday and Saturday because valley highs are going to be near 105 degrees. So we also have a weather impact alert those 2 days for the extreme heat. Heat safety is going to be very important by the end of this week, especially if you're working outside. When temperatures are 105, it is important to make sure you're drinking plenty of water before, during, and after time in the heat. Take breaks in the shade or the AC every 30 minutes or so, and make sure you're wearing sunscreen with an SPF of at least 30. Again, these things are all really important because this level of heat, 104 on Friday, 102 on Saturday, affects everybody, not just those who are sensitive to heat. The good news is, if there's some good news to be had with the heat wave, is that it drops pretty quickly. It's really just a couple of days, maybe 3 days if you want to lump Thursday in there. By the time we get to Monday and Tuesday, we're back in the low to mid 80s. Alex.
All right, Brendan, thanks. I don't know if my AC is quite ready for this yet. All right, next on To The Point, a new COVID variant emerges, how scientists are tracking its spread as vaccine guidance shifts. Plus, with health policy changing in Washington, former Health Secretary Javier Becerra weighs in. Stanford scientists have detected a new COVID-19 variant that experts say has been found in wastewater samples in California. It comes as health officials are now restricting access to vaccines. COVID-19 is still evolving, and scientists are keeping close tabs on a substrain detected in China last month, now circulating in California. Doctors say the good news is this strain does not appear to be more severe, but it looks like it is more contagious.
It appears to be able to attach to the receptor sites on our cells more avidly, with greater ability, which may mean that it's more transmissible, which would not be good news.
COVID numbers have been low this year, but that could change as we head into fall and winter. Today, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. removed the COVID vaccine from the CDC's immunization schedule for pregnant women and healthy children. A CDC advisory panel is set to meet in June to make recommendations about the fall shots. In a wide-ranging interview, former HHS Secretary Javier Becerra, who is now running for California governor, sat down with To The Point to give his thoughts on some of the recent changes in health policy in Washington.
For measles, probably for measles, what I would say is my opinions about vaccines are irrelevant.
Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., an environmental lawyer with no background in medicine,
I don't think people should be taking medical advice from me.
Is a controversial pick to lead the Department of Health and Human Services. Founder and former chairman of Children's Health Defense, an anti-vaccine nonprofit, Secretary Kennedy has long pushed false claims about the safety and efficacy of vaccines.
News reports have claimed that I'm anti-vaccine or anti-industry. I am neither. I am pro-safety.
ABC 10 sat down with Javier Becerra, former President Biden's Secretary of Health and Human Services.
The lack of respect for science, that politics is driving some of the decisions for our most important health agency in the country.
He's concerned about what he's seen in Washington this year.
Letting go some of the best scientists we have at the Food and Drug Administration means that next novel drug or medical device won't get out as quickly because we won't have the people there to go through the process of making sure it's a safe and effective.
As the Trump administration restructures the federal workforce, around 20,000 employees under the Health and Human Services Department have been laid off, offered early retirement, or deferred resignation programs.
Research, yeah! Research, yeah!
Agencies impacted include the Centers for Disease Control and the FDA, with more proposed cuts on the way. We know that California and many other states sued the Trump administration over these changes. What are your thoughts on this?
I don't see where some of these professionals can be just summarily fired and, one, have that be legal, but two, have that be sensible for the health of this country. It's not the way we should do healthcare. And, it's going to start to show.
Secretary Kennedy is also renewing public discussion around autism, backing claims that vaccines cause autism. RFK Jr. said this during his confirmation hearing.
I am not going into the agency with any.
That's kind of a yes or no question, because because the data is there, and that's kind of a yes or no. And I don't mean to cut you off, but that really is a yes or no.
If the data is there, I will absolutely do that.
The secretary calls autism an epidemic, suggests individuals with autism are incapable of employment and relationships, and says his office will find a cure by this fall.
I am curious to understand how a politician who is not a scientist can say that by this fall we're going to determine what the causes of autism are. I can tell you that when I was at the Department of Health and Human Services, there were no scientists who were telling me that by the fall of 2025, we would discover the causes of autism. But it gives you a window into the way the Department of Health and Human Services is run. And what I believe is happening, the only thing I can tell, is that the current secretary is allowing the White House and politics to drive the decisions that are made by a healthcare agency, when those decisions should be driven by the science and the data.
Well, what impact do you believe some of these statements can have, not only public perception, but also policy regarding autism?
Making it sound like nobody who has autism can do anything for themselves is unfortunate, and it deprives all those family members who are working really hard for those Americans with autism, the dignity and respect that they deserve for all the work they do for those they love.
Secretary Kennedy also mandated placebo-controlled trials for all new vaccines, describing it as a move towards greater transparency. While medical experts fear this could limit access to vaccines. How might this policy influence public health outcomes and also the nation's immunization infrastructure as a whole?
Well, it's as if he's taking us back to square one. There is no vaccine that's on the market that hasn't gone through trials, where there haven't been studies done where placebos were used. So I haven't heard the explanation why we have to go back to do something we did a long time ago. Because in some cases, the measles vaccine, for example, has been around for a long time. It's been administered to millions and millions of people.
And already been proven to be effective.
And it's proven to be effective.
So then why do you think it's happening? What do you think is the motive behind it?
I gotta believe that many of the medical and scientific professionals are more than scratching their hair, probably pulling their hair out at this stage, because it's clear that science is no longer driving the decisions we make. And that is, it's not just a travesty, it's dangerous.
Under the Trump administration's proposed Big Beautiful Bill, the Department of Health and Human Services would be cut by over $33 billion. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the National Institutes of Health and Medicare and Medicaid Services, along all risk, losing millions in funding should the bill pass. The bill is currently in the Senate. All right, coming up next on To the Point, how bridge construction could impact your commute. We'll have the details. A construction project now underway in Sacramento County could impact your commute over the next few months. Crews are working to replace the Arcade Creek Bridge. The project will replace the existing bridge originally built in 1927 with a modern structure and widen it to add a second left turn lane from Auburn Boulevard onto Winding Way. Auburn Boulevard will be closed between Winding Way and the I-80 Business 80 ramps during the next 3 months. The bridge is expected to reopen near the end of August, something we will be keeping our eye on. As always, thank you so much for watching and inviting us into your home. If you have something you think me and the team should be looking into, you can always email us at tothepoint@abc10.com. And I know we cover a lot of ground on the show, so if you miss a story, don't forget you can always download our free ABC10 Plus TV streaming app.